My name is Dyllon Perrin, and you're listening to the 47th episode of the Animals at Home podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Thank you very much for joining me. If you are new, then welcome to the show. I imagine many of you are new, considering today's guest is Em Locke from Emzotic, and I know she has sent a huge part of her creature crew over to listen to the podcast. So if you're part of that group, then thank you very much for joining me today. I do hope you enjoy this episode, and I also encourage you to go check out a few of the other episodes that we've recorded. There's almost 50 episodes to choose from now, or maybe there's more than 50. Anyway, there's a bunch of different content to choose from, so I definitely encourage you to go check that out. And if you are from the creature crew, please come out and say hi. Either leave a comment in the YouTube comments and let me know you're from the creature crew, or send me a DM on Instagram or comment on Instagram post. I would love to hear from you guys. If you are a regular listener, then welcome. Thank you very much for joining me as always. If you are not subscribed to me on YouTube yet, I recommend that you do, because in the next few weeks I am going to be publishing a few videos. I don't exactly know what they are yet, but I'm going to still working on that, but I'm trying to attract those new people to the hobby, people who are brand new to the hobby, who are looking for guidance. Of course, the podcast is a huge resource, and it's a massive resource for people, either new to the hobby, novice, advanced, doesn't matter who you are, but I definitely want to attract those new keepers who are looking for which direction to turn. So I'm going to be pushing some videos out that are sort of in that sentiment. So if you're interested in that, you'll find them there. Thank you to CustomReptileHabitats.com for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. If you are in need of a universal rock background, a Miss King system, Arcadia lighting, or just a kit for your leopard gecko, your bearded dragon, or your ball python, definitely go check out the website in the link, CustomReptileHabitats.com. They really do have it all when it comes to gold standard reptile care. Later this week, I am going to be making another donation to the Amazon Rainforest Conservancy. Again, that is donations based off some of the income I get through the YouTube channel as well as the podcast. So I'm super excited to do that. I think our donations will be up over $300. I'm going to have to check. So if you are interested in that, go to animalsathome.ca, and in the top header there, you'll see a link called Save the Rainforest. You can see how much money we've raised and sort of what it goes to. But the Amazon Rainforest Conservancy is a charity that protects parts of the Peruvian Amazon rainforest. Super proud to say Animals at Home is a supporter of that charity. And again, every time I can make a donation based off of your guys' support is super exciting. All right, let's jump into today's episode. Today, I am speaking with Em Locke from the YouTube channel Emzotic. In this conversation, we chat about everything from Em's childhood, how she initially got involved into animals, her animal education career in the UK, as well as why she started a YouTube channel and how she's grown into this massive channel with this just amazing fan base. Of course, we discuss her new book, Animal Kind, which is available on Audible, as well as hard copies on Amazon. And of course, we also discuss the importance of animals and the importance of keeping pets in your life. And Em also lets us in on some of the future plans she has for her channel and content she is about to produce. Enjoy the episode. All right, well, Em, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. How you doing?
I think you must be in the top 3 or 4 most recognizable animal YouTubers out there. So it's obviously an honor to have you on. But also you have this amazing fan base that just adores you. So I really want to get into all that as well, because you've cultivated these just a great group of people. But let's rewind the clock all the way back to young Em. Was there a moment when you realized that animals would be part of your life forever? Do you remember a moment, or was they just always there?
Honestly, it's always been there. I've said this a couple of times, but for me, my love of animals, my need to be around them is as much a part of me as my hands or my feet are. It's just always been there.
When you were in school, did you have the classic, like I want to be a vet or all that? Or what was the dream goal or career back then?
Oh, yeah. I mean, as a child, what adult doesn't tell kids, oh, if you love animals, you'll be a great vet. You should definitely get into veterinary medicine because there's great money in veterinary medicine. But I did have that belief for a long time that I should be an animal doctor. And as I got older, I just realized I don't want to be the person who heals animals. I want to do something different. So what else is there out there for me, which is going to fulfill me and play to my strengths? Because I would make a terrible doctor. I really would. So I think I've really found a place to marry all of my different talents and interests together. And YouTube and being able to reach my amazing Creature Crew community is I suppose, the mixture, like the perfect storm of everything that I've worked for in my life to get to this point.
Yeah, well, it's not like you're old or anything, but when you were a kid, this job didn't exist, right? You go back when we were in high school 10, 15 years ago, this was not a thing. So it's pretty cool that you can do that. When you were a kid, did you guys have pets or?
No, actually, my parents are not animal people in the slightest. I mean,
Oh, you're one of those from those families.
yeah, no, my mum is terrified of goldfish, and my dad had a couple of dogs, but he's not an animal person. He respects animals, and so does my mum, but neither one of them was an animal person. And they were very supportive in my interest of them because they thought I was going to be a vet, but they did not want me to bring animals into the house. However, when I reached about 10 years old, we lived in Hong Kong at this point. I decided to make my own rules, and I decided to sneak home a couple of animals and keep them in secret. And that just kind of opened Pandora's box for me. And my parents realized there was nothing they could do, so they let me have quite the menagerie at home.
What did you initially sneak in?
Okay, so there were a couple of wild lizards, and I also brought home the one that sticks out for me the most because my mum freaked out over it. It was this little pet rat that I found in this really gross flea market pet store in the middle of nowhere, Hong Kong. And this woman was, this pet store owner was a very old lady, very old school Chinese, and she was going to dispatch this baby rat because it was so small. And I was like, no, let me have it. So she packaged it up in a Pringles box. And I remember it was sour cream and onion. And she packaged it up in a Pringles box, like, you know, those little tiny Pringles boxes you can get.
Yeah.
And she told me I could take it. And she gave me some like food. She basically took pity, like, oh, this rat's going to die and this child's going to try and look after it. Good luck to you. Here you go. Take this home. And I used all my pocket money to buy a little setup for it. And I kept it in secret for about 6 weeks, feeding it through like a little pipette, little, you know, kitten formula, just trying to make it nice and healthy. And it thrived. And eventually I had to come clean to my mom, and she freaked out. She hates rats. But, you know, she was a good sport about it in the end and let me keep it. And we were best buddies for the longest time, me and this rat.
That's an amazing story. Yeah, I have my parents let me bring animals into the house, but my mom drew the line at snakes. So I kind of had to do the same thing. You know, I just brought one home one day and said, this is what's happening. So I think eventually once your parents realize that you're really passionate about it and you're not like hoarding creepy animals under your bed, you actually care about it, they, support it.
Yeah, I would say mine never like fully supported me keeping the creepier animals, but they understood my need and they understood that it was not selfish. It was a true interest and passion of mine. So they stayed quiet, and that was their support. Quiet support with a disapproving eye.
That's classic parents.
Yes, it is.
So when you moved out of your family's home, your parents' home, did you just rush out and buy like a dream animal or something?
Actually, my parents flew the nest before I had a chance to leave it. They left me in charge when I was about 17 years old of their London property. So when they left, yes, I rushed out and I brought home a couple of different animals that I probably was not welcome to keep. I had a beautiful Malaysian blood python called Meep or Meepy. I had my ferret Bear. I had this beloved, gorgeous hunting ferret called Bear. He was actually an ex-hunter. Now, a lot of people don't realize, because here in America, ferrets are just pets, but in other parts of the world, specifically in the UK and other parts of Europe, there are hunting ferrets. Like, that was what they were bred for. And my ferret Bear was this absolute beast of a ferret, and he was a like champion rabbiter as a kid. But as he got older, he just got really lazy and he started like taking naps with the rabbits he was supposed to be hunting. So my friend who bred him gave him to me, and he was my beloved companion for a really long time. And he came with me on different animal encounter jobs that I used to do, and he just made friends with everyone. It was a delight. I love ferrets.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the way you talk about ferrets in your book, as well as when you see them on your channel, just everybody must fall in love with them because they just seem like these incredible creatures.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not fall in love with a little limo mouse? I mean, that's what I think of them as. And, you know, they're my carpet sharks. They're my bonus weasels. That's what I like to call them. It's a difficult thing to be upset or depressed with a ferret around. They're just so full of life. They just want to have fun, eat well, and sleep really well as well. I mean, if I could be an animal, I would be a ferret. And
Yeah.
I think that's why I keep them around me, because they're just so fun and playful and so intelligent and just really wonderful creatures.
Yeah, they are actually really intelligent. I think people that probably don't realize how, or people that aren't familiar with them don't realize how intelligent they are, but they are capable of pretty complex things.
Oh, yes, they are. I mean, they're incredibly smart. I particularly like the males because they're a little bit more laid back than the females. But I have this gorgeous female ferret called Dobby. I named her after Dobby the house elf in Harry Potter, which is so fitting because her thing is she's such a live wire. I mean, she's this big. She's like a tiny little loaf of bread. And yet she rules the roost. I mean, she puts my huge dog in his place and she's afraid of nothing and she just wants to steal all the socks. And she's brilliant and she's such a live wire, so smart, so intelligent, so just looking for a way to cause mischief. And I love that about her.
Yeah, my friend had a ferret when we were kids, and the same thing. This thing would always steal your socks, and he'd run them behind the TV. So, like, if you lost your socks, you'd go behind the TV, and there was like 50 pairs of rolled up socks that this ferret was just stashing back there. It's kind
Yeah,
of
I have
crazy.
no idea why they're such thieves, but I believe that their Latin name, I think it's Mastella putoris furo, and I think that literally translates to either spear-shaped stinky thief or stinky little thief. There is some debate around it. But yes, they are smelly and they are thieves, and I love them very much.
So, do they free roam around? Like, I know people put them in cages, but I feel like whenever I see yours, they're just tussling around in the background. Do they have a cage that you put them in, and lock them in, or are they just free to go?
Yeah, no, they've got this two-story enclosure, which I love. It's this imported enclosure because I'm a bit of an enclosure freak. I like having really nice enclosures. And the one that I have for them is called the Furplast Ferret Tower. It came over from Italy and it's great. That's where they spend the majority of their time. But if I'm down inside my office, it's a secure space where I've secured basically everything to weasel proof it, to ferret proof it. And if I'm down there, then they get to exercise because although they will sleep for around 18 hours a day, it's important to give them that ability to come out and to explore and cause some mischief and raise some hell. That makes them very happy. It makes me happy to watch them too. So certainly exercising ferrets is a very important part of my day.
Yeah, and it's fun to watch.
Very fun to watch.
So getting back to your kind of animal story, eventually you got into educating or animal education. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because when you were, I think in your book, you talk about these crazy hours that you were doing. So what was the job and what sort of role did you have?
Well, I was brought on via an acquaintance of mine to this animal encounters company. And what they were one of the largest in the UK at the time. They would send out different rangers. So I was one of their rangers, and I would go into different schools to give presentations on lots of different animals. And the animal ambassadors that I had access to were a really phenomenal collection of incredibly well looked after exotics. I was working with giant Indian fruit bats. I raised meerkats. You know, you have your own set of animals at this place and you have to have a great bond with them. So I was raising baby meerkats, baby armadillos, different kinds of owls, lots of different reptiles, of course. And my job would be to go into different schools, colleges, museums, fetes and fairs, anywhere where people are looking to learn or be entertained. And I would give these, you know, either half hour, 45 minutes, or hour and 45 minutes sometimes presentations on adaptation, evolution, animal behavior, and give people a really safe hands-on experience with these animals.
So in terms of like you had your little crop of animals that were for you. I'm guessing those were kept at some sort of central location, and then like you didn't have them in your home.
That's right. Yes, I had my pets at home, which were very, very few. It was a couple of snakes and my ferret, and aside from that, everybody else was at a large established facility, which was manned and staffed and very well looked after. And every now and then, I would bring them home and I'd do some photography with them, or just do some extra bonding with them, because it's important to keep that relationship alive. That's not just a working relationship; they also have to trust you. So I was given the opportunity to bring them home. For a night or two at a time, just to work further with those animals.
Mm-hmm. And it's at that point, is that when you realized that you have this love for education? Did you know that before, or was that just part of the process of taking on that role?
I fell into it via another person, and I assumed that I would enjoy the job because of the animals, but I was never really a children person. However, when I got more and more into my work, I started to really enjoy it. And everyone, when they start off in animal education, is a little bit, I suppose, scared of spilling the wrong fact or not being able to control a room, but it actually came quite naturally to me. And I started to really play with it and enjoy it and have a really, really great time at these shows. So even though I was working really long hours, because I had to get up very early to go and drive to the location to feed the animals, change them, pack them up, get in the car. Then it's usually rush hour or trying to get somewhere through rush hour to get to one appointment. Then there might be several others in the day. And then it's going back to the place where the animals would live, put them into their enclosures, muck them out again, feed them again, settle them, write down your notes, and then drive an hour back home again. So it was a very, very long day. My day normally started at 4 or 5 a.m. And some days I wouldn't get back until 11 p.m., but I was okay with it because I really loved that job.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. And how long did you do that for?
I think about 6 years I did that.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yes, but I actually started off as an animal tech. So before you actually go out and start doing your own shows, the uppers in the company would bring you on as an animal tech just to check that you're the kind of person they want to work with and to represent their brand. So I would go in and I sort of started out by mucking out, 4 hours a day. And then it would be, entrusting me to raise a certain animal for a couple of weeks. And then it was, hey, do you want to start going out on shows? And do you want to be a driver for a while? And then it's, do you want to do your own shows? And that's kind of how I got into it.
Is mucking out an English term for cleaning cages?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what I call it. Yeah, just mucking out the enclosures. Yes.
Cleaning
them out. Basically being a glorified toilet attendant for animals. Yes.
Sure. Which is kind of what we are all doing most of the time anyway.
Oh, yeah. I'm proud of it for sure.
That's right. But there is something special about being able to captivate a room full of people, and especially with kids, because I work with kids in my regular job, and it can go awry really quickly. And as soon as you lose a room, especially with 10-year-olds, it's really hard to bring it back. But I'm sure that is probably the most rewarding part about it.
It is, and I was very lucky to work with many different kinds of groups during my time as an animal educator in London. And some of my favorite groups were special needs groups. There were so many parents who had come to me after the show and say, my child has not shown any emotion for years until today, and you did that for them. And I was like, wow. And then there were other places I'd go to, prisons even. I went into different prisons where prisoners were on good behavior and being rewarded for good behavior. And it was a very surreal thing to know that these people who probably have committed some pretty awful crimes in their lives are so gentle and so open to being kind to an animal. It's really amazing to see how animals can help to rehabilitate people and to calm them down. So certainly I feel that animals have their own particular kind of magic, and I feel like I got to witness that every single day.
Yeah, it's interesting. Is like that we all have that innate deep curiosity with animals, even if you're not familiar with the species. And I'm sure many of the people that you encountered were not, especially if you went into the prisons and whatnot. It's just like, it's hard to describe almost when they see an animal, the deep curiosity and questions, and a whole life can come from that.
Absolutely. I mean, I never took for granted the animals that I worked with, but certainly it was normal for me to have meerkats burrowing in my hair and to be carrying a 4-foot crocodile around. That was normal for me. But for some people, just the delight in their eyes when you bring out a beautiful leopard gecko, and they've never seen anything like it. And most people who keep reptiles, you don't really look twice at a leopard gecko these days, unless it's a really fancy morph. But these people had never seen one before. They were just besotted with how beautiful these creatures are. It's a bright yellow lizard with this chunky pink tail, and it's covered in spots like a cheetah. Like, what is this? It's magical to them. It's like a mythical beast. And to see people's eyes just light up because you've shown them something different, or you've managed to help them get over a fear, that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, when you're so involved in the animal or pet hobby, you definitely forget what it's like to not know. Like, I mean, any lizard that is seen as an iguana to most people. They're like, oh, is that an iguana? What is that, an iguana? And yeah, that's right. We forget that they don't have that connection to the animals. And it's obviously, these are wild animals, and we can talk about that with them. I'm sure you guys did that as well, that it will give them more respect for the wild counterparts for the animals that you're showing.
Yes, absolutely. That was something that I like to push a lot on my shows, is that these animals, they don't choose to come home with us as pets. We choose them most of the time. And it's the very least we can do to understand what those animals need in order to not only survive, but to thrive as well. There's a lot more that goes into exotic animal keeping and domestic animal keeping than we've come to appreciate on the whole. I think people like to do the bare minimum a lot of the time, which is something that I'm trying to in 2020 encourage people to do more of. Keep fewer animals, but keep them really, really well. So it's nice to be able to try and spread a message and to make people understand that the minimum that we can do for the animals is give them the very best while they're in our care, because they don't have a say. And if they're going to be living with us on our time and experiencing life secondarily through us, then the least we can do is give them something phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's obviously a huge foundation of the podcast itself is really the least we can do
Yes.
is do the best we can. Like
Yes.
we need to really be supplying as much as we can and constantly be looking for new ways to improve. Like it's not like we're done. There's always going to be a learning curve. There's always new things that we're going to add and new, because you're right. They do sacrifice themselves in a way because they didn't have the choice in this relationship. And we want to make that sacrifice worthy.
Absolutely. And that's something I really wanted to take into account before I brought home my dog. Now, everyone knows if they follow me, I am obsessed with my dog Kiba. I mean, I post about him all the time, but the truth of the matter is that even though I've worked with so many different exotics, for me, my dream pet was always a dog. But because I moved around so much and I worked such long hours, I was not prepared to bring a dog into my life until I was absolutely confident that I could give them the very best. And I feel that in my life, at times, I feel like I could have done more for other animals I've kept, but I know for a fact I'm giving my dog the best day of his life every single day. And I'm really glad that I waited, because I feel like if I committed to getting a dog before I knew in my heart that I was ready, even though it was difficult to hold off because all I wanted to do was just go out and find myself the right dog, in waiting, I found myself the dog to end all dogs. I mean, he is my soul dog. And I think that in waiting, you get a lot more out of your experience keeping a pet than just going out and impulse buying and then making things work when you get home. I think taking the time to really research, to make sure that you're in the right space to bring an animal home, you will get the most from your animal, and the animal will get most from you.
Totally, yeah, and exactly that it does pay itself off, because the animal does give you, even if it's just a reptile, it's not going to be the same relationship with the dog, but you're going to see all these new behaviors, and it's going to pay off in a way that you wouldn't even imagine if you went just with that impulse purchase, super simple setup. You're never going to see your ball python behave in this way that it would behave had you had a more sort of naturalistic setup. So I love that in 2020 that's going to be one of your goals on YouTube. So obviously from the animal education role, you slipped into YouTube at some point. Did those overlap or?
Yes, I was on and off as an animal educator for a very long time, around 6 years. And in between that, I actually worked as a zookeeper for a while. And that was a real eye-opener, because when I thought to myself, I really don't want to be a vet. What else can I do that's going to fulfill me? Well, I thought, hey, zookeeping. And I applied for a zookeeper position. I actually got it, and I worked very, very hard at it. But I realized that there's a lot more that goes into zookeeping that meets the eye. And I found it too limiting for me. I found that I was always trying to contend with a lot of red tape. If I wanted to change an enclosure up for the better, I had to go through several different departments and wait for weeks to be able to have any kind of okay to do something. I just thought, certain zoos are absolutely wonderful. I support the really good zoos out there, but there are plenty, like the one that I used to work at, which naturally I cannot name, which I feel is not run with the animal's best interests at heart. It's more to do with keeping costs down and visitation high. So in the end, I stepped away from that, and it was a very difficult decision, because when it comes to zookeeping, you care for these animals, you tend them when they're sick, you love them dearly, but they're not yours. And the people who they do technically belong to sometimes don't even know they exist, never see them even once during their lifetimes, because it's someone who's in corporate somewhere. But I did find it very difficult to move away from that. But in doing that, I realized that there's certain animal jobs that just because it's an animal job doesn't mean that we're all suitable to that job because we're animal people. There are musicians who are animal people who, make scores for different documentary series. There are animal people who love photography and they become pet portrait photographers or videographers for Shark Week, which, you know, some of my friends actually work on. So I think it's important when you are looking for an animal job to play to your strengths. What do you want? What's important to you? And for me, it's freedom and creativity. So YouTube does that for me. And I was very happy to step into a space, even though I was scared to do it initially, where I've been accepted and people resonate with my content and they're happy to support someone who's just being a bit of a dork online but wants to share animals and education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I think when people, especially when they're younger, people have a passion for animals and they're looking for something to do. And like you said, zookeeper and vet are the ones that come up all the time.
Yes.
And that's not for everybody. And it's so true that there are so many other things. There are just an infinite amount of things that you could do if you want to work with animals. It doesn't have to be those two big ones, and it can be just as rewarding, and it will be better for you depending on your personality. Not everybody wants to be a vet. So that's a really great point. And I always try to make that point to people, especially if they're younger and they're looking for something to do. It's like there's so many options. So
Yeah.
when you started YouTube, did you have a plan, or did you just say, I'm going to make my first video and introduce my animals at the time, or?
You know, I actually was making YouTube videos, I guess back in like 2006. It was just putting my animal clips together from my dodgy first camera phone on, you know, Windows Movie Maker, just to different music, which of course all got demonetized and monetization became a thing. But I was just playing around on YouTube. I really enjoyed it. And then I stepped away from it for a while just because it was before monetization and, you know, life got busy for me. And then I had this very sad moment in my life where I sadly lost a pregnancy, a child that I was wanting to carry and wanted to bring into the world. And it was a very complicated loss. And I'm sorry if this is triggering for anyone. But I ended up in the hospital for a while, and I remember that there was a distinct chance that I was not going to really make it. I lost a lot of blood and I refused a blood transfusion. And I remember the next day waking up thinking, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? You know, if I have been given the gift of living another day after all these complications, what do I want? Do I want to have security? Do I want to make a difference? What do I want? And I just thought, I just want to live. You know, I want to spend every day doing what I love. And what I love doing is very niche. I like filming my animals. I like getting fun videos of them drinking water in slow motion. I like to play with my animals. I like to talk about cockroaches and snails. And when I left the hospital, I thought, I'm just going to give this YouTube thing a try. This was back in 2016, very end of 2016. And I just thought, this might not happen. I might not be a YouTuber like Michelle Phan is, who was like my idol back in the day. But maybe I'll just see if anybody likes my content. So I invested everything actually that I had into getting a decent camera. I listened to a couple of podcasts on like literally how to do YouTube, how to post a video, what are tags, what is a title. And I just went straight back to basics and created a couple of videos. And they just literally took off. It's almost like I stepped into the space and people said, welcome. And I loved that. And I feel so grateful to have had such a wonderful community who I've really come to love. I mean, my community is everything to me. I can't call them fans. I call them my creature crew. They're like extended digital family. And I feel like I will always show up for them because they always show up for me. And we're all crazy animal people who probably love animals that other people really do not even want to lay eyes on, and it kind of binds us all together, and we all like to support one another. And I just think it's a really wonderful thing. YouTube gave me back my life, and it gave me, even though I was missing the child that I wanted to bring into the world, instead I'm now able to nurture a community of children and adults out there who have become my family. So in a way, it's become a very beautiful healing process for me.
That's amazing. Yeah. And even it's 2020, you go back to 2016, YouTube was still very different back then. It's still growing. It's still becoming what it is now. But in 2016, it's done a lot of growth since then. So it would have been kind of a fresh thing. There wouldn't have been a lot to go off of in terms of what to do, really.
Absolutely. And there were a couple of standout animal channels or reptile channels at the time. But since then, there's been an almost explosion of pet mania on YouTube. There's a whole subgenre called pet tube. And, every community has had its dramas in the past. But what I've noticed is that the people in the pet YouTube community or the pet tube community, everyone has kind of learned from the mistakes of trying to be competitors to one another. And instead, everyone's become supportive. And I'm so grateful that these days there's not a single animal YouTuber out there who I look at and think, oh, I'm jealous, or I don't like what they're doing. I respect every creator. I understand that everyone has their own creative vision, and I've become really great friends with so many wonderful creators. And it's just expanded my universe for me. And if anybody out there is interested in making a YouTube channel about animals, just go ahead and do it. I mean, live for the day. Yes, it's going to be cringy the first time you sit in front of a camera, you don't know what to say. Like, I was sweating buckets. And my first couple of videos I ended up hiding because honestly, they were rubbish, but they were really good for me to just sort of cut my teeth on how to do YouTube. But the community is really great. Just ignore the hate and nurture the people who want to be there for you. 99% of people on the internet are your cheerleaders. There's 1% that are going to be jealous, but put those out of your mind and focus on the content and focus on making other people happy and spreading a good message.
Yeah, you definitely have to suck first, and that's like something you just have to admit, that these first few videos are going to be so bad. And the funny thing about it is you can't tell that they're bad when you're doing them. You're like, there's no way I'm going to think this is bad in 5 months. Like, this seems pretty good. And then you go back and you're like, oh my God, how did I make this? Like, everything about this is awkward. And it's a really good point that we often see other people as competition, like you said, and you end up hating them because you think, oh, I don't like that. And one of the points that I've made before is just by virtue of the fact that you're actually doing the same thing really tells you have a lot in common. And if you met that person on the street, you'd probably be friends.
Absolutely. And something that I and the rest of the pet YouTube creator community noticed is that when the space is healthy, when people are all posting consistently, when you're being supportive of one another, when you're happy in your creativity, the entire space thrives and everybody earns more. When people have dramas and when people stop posting because things just get a bit heavy for them emotionally, they have to step back, everybody's earnings suffer. So if you want to be a pet YouTuber, please jump on the platform and create lots of content, because then we'll all get recommended to one another, and that makes my living much, much happier. So please come and join us.
It's definitely a positive feedback loop. Now, what about the issue with some pet tubers? Just, I mean, I don't want you to throw people under the bus or anything like that, but sure. I do notice with just the ability to create content, one of the only ways you can create content a lot of ways as a pet tuber is getting a new animal. Yes. And it ends up becoming this mushroom of animals that the person can't handle. And then there's always this video of, I had to get rid of some of my animals and rehome them. Is there a way around that? Do you have any recommendations for people to avoid accumulating animals?
Absolutely. Now, when that happened a few years ago, there was certainly the YouTube algorithm favors the word new and pet. I mean, if you put those a few years ago, you're guaranteed like a 1 million hit. It's not the same anymore, thank goodness. I think YouTube kind of changed that after getting some feedback. So nowadays, I find a lot of pet YouTubers try and focus on keeping a smaller amount of animals and at least letting people know that they have helpers coming in to help them. It's not just them looking after, say, 100 animals alone. They have a spouse, or they live in a house with lots of different animal people, like pet YouTuber houses and things, where they all give each other a hand. But it's not sustainable for the average person who lives alone and wants to have 100 pets. So if you're interested in making content, you only have a betta fish and a dog, that's fine. You don't know how many infinite possibilities there are to make so much content. Like, teach that betta to jump through a hoop, like teach that betta how to station for food. You can do a ton of different videos on setups, and some of the most successful animal channels out there feature one animal. Look at Doug the pug. That's one animal. It's not 20 pugs, and you can do a lot more if you dedicate yourself to making one animal or just a handful of animals the star of your channel. You don't have to spread yourself so thin that way. It's less expensive. So I believe you should start with just a couple of animals, and if you want to expand from there, do so when it is right for you, when you can sustain it financially, not just because you think it's going to give your channel a boost, because it won't. In the long term, it will drain you. You will get burnout from it, and you won't get that emotional enjoyment from that animal animal, and I would know because I've been there. So I think it's just a very, very good idea to start nice and slow. If you only have one animal, if you only have no animals and you just want to talk about animals that you don't even have, but you would like to have one day, that's okay too. You don't even have to feature an animal to be an animal channel.
Hmm. Yeah, so true. And that's one thing that often happens in the reptile hobby is people associate your credibility with the amount of animals that you have, and it's
Yeah.
just so not true. You don't
Mhm.
need to have a wall full of animals to be able to talk about the animals. And I think so many people who are getting into the space for the first time, they feel like, oh, I don't have enough important stuff to say. It's like, just like you're saying, just talk about the animal. Somebody's going to find that valuable.
Absolutely. And certain animal channels are very niche as well. I mean, there are animation pet channels where people animate animals because they're really into animals, but they're really into animation. There's plenty of ways that you can bring your passion for animals to YouTube without owning a single animal if you don't want to.
Hmm.
So I think that if you are willing to think outside the box and take a chance, you'll find that there is a space for you on YouTube. And I welcome everyone to come be a part of the community.
Yeah, totally. And thanks for saying niche, by the way, instead of niche.
I mean, hey, if you guys say niche, I'm not gonna say we can't be friends, but we can't be friends. I'm just
I
joking.
know.
I
It's
I
such a
should say niche.
it's an American thing, niche.
Niche. I don't know, just it makes me feel like I have a rash, you know?
Yeah, niche. The word is niche.
Yes.
You've done this amazing job at cultivating these and you don't like to use the term fans, your creature crew. Have you done something specific, because you have these just totally admirable these people that just show up for you every time?
Yes, they do.
What have you done to create that?
What have I done? um, I think a reason why people resonate with me and my content is because I've always shared not only the ups but also the downs. You know, I'm very realistic, and if I struggle with something, I'm gonna share it. And I think a lot of YouTubers, especially female YouTubers, because there's a lot of pressure on us to look a certain way, or to be a certain age, or to attain a certain amount of followers, or a certain kind of body type, or be perfect. Not that men don't get that too, don't get me wrong, but certainly I feel like as a woman, it's very, very easy to get swallowed up in being perfect. And I am really not perfect. I mean, I mess up, I make blunders, I get in over my head, and sometimes I want to share real life things. You know, I haven't had a peachy life, and I've been very blessed in many ways, but I've been through some really trying times as well. And animals have helped me get through that. And something I've realized is that animal people are extremely emotional, but like in the sense that they have a lot of empathy. And I think that when people realize that you've been through things, you can grow from that. And you're letting other people know, hey, it's okay if you have anxiety or depression or, you know, bipolar 2 like I do. You know, it's okay. And animals are there for everyone. And everyone's all in this together. We all love animals. There's no need to fight or have a bad time about it. So I think just in sharing my trials and sharing my successes as well, I've managed to gain the trust of my community, and they've gained mine as well. I trust them implicitly, and I would not share half of what I do share if I didn't feel welcomed by my community, who are the literal lifeblood and pulse of my channel. There's no Emzotic without the creature crew. And I keep that in the front of my mind every day, and I bear that in mind when it comes to sponsorship deals. You know, I don't often do sponsorship deals. It seems like some channels do it because, you know, they need to make a sale, and I appreciate that. But for me, like I think my creature crew know that if I'm going to push something, it's something I truly believe in, and I think that my community are um, very valiant in that they will always show up for a good cause. They're good people. So I like to create products, and I like to shout out causes for them to help if I feel that they're interested in that. But I do spend a lot of my day interacting with my community, answering questions, trying to answer as many DMs as I can. I speak to them over on Twitter and share, you know, some more of my kind of like more mature humor with them over there. Or like when I'm feeling a little bit fresh, then I'll go over to Twitter. And then on YouTube, that's where I put the bulk of my like happy content. Instagram is all a little bit more quirky, and people will go where they want to see that part of me. And some of them don't like my Instagram. That's okay. They just want my thoughts on Twitter, and some just want to watch my two ferrets on YouTube, and that's fine. But I try and make something for everyone. And I think that in being able to realize that there's lots of different kinds of animal people who do watch me, and trying to create content to suit all of them a little bit without burning out myself. I think that's been a real winner for me, actually. And just, they're phenomenal people. I don't know what I did to deserve them. I don't actually know overall what I did. I just showed up for them. They showed up for me. We've continued to be in this wonderful symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, well, I think you've just described exactly why it happened. I mean, you've really put a lot into the relationship. It's not like you just post a video and then disappear. You spend this time interacting, and being vulnerable with them is obviously huge because it creates that trust, like you said.
Yes.
And there is this deep, in my opinion, this deep importance to being able to have pets and have animals around it. We've kind of talked about this already. Of course, there are factions of our society that really wish we didn't keep pets, especially exotic pets, where the exotic pets are the ones that are kind of on the chopping blocks. Why do they deserve? And clearly there is this deep importance, and you can't even answer in terms of just why should we be able to keep pets, but you basically wrote a book on it. You have some stories about why keeping pets. So just, are you able to answer that question? Why should we be able to keep pets? And then I want to talk about your book, but is there a short answer for that for you?
Well, I don't think that, I think pets are a privilege and not a right.
Of course, yes.
Give the animal a great chance at a wonderful life, then go for it. That's a really wonderful, selfless thing to do. And for me, I think that, you know, back in the day, like many, many thousands of years ago, we didn't have technology to distract us. We just had nature and we had community. And I think that there's a part of all of us that still yearns for nature and yearns for community. And animals are part of that community with us on this planet. And I feel like bringing into our concrete homes a little piece of the outside, whether it's domesticated or not, reminds us of where we've come from. It's a very special relationship. I mean, there aren't any other animals that really keep other creatures as pets or keep other creatures around them for the benefit of an emotional connection, but we do. And I think it's a part of us as humans that we want to fulfill that need. So fulfilling it properly and conscientiously is very important. But certainly I feel that a lot of animals give a lot to us that we can benefit from. And in return, we give them safety and comfort and happiness and love and protection. And I think that's a really wonderful thing, especially when it comes to people who have, say anxiety or depression. Animals can really lift us. And that's why I do support pet ownership, responsible pet ownership.
Yes, responsible is huge, and you're exactly right. It is a privilege. It's not a right. There's not a lot of places around the world that get to keep pets as a part of their daily life. We have that privilege. We want to make sure we're using it properly. And yeah, this responsibility that you can get from owning an animal can really be the difference between someone that's deep into a depressive state, or someone that has something to wake up and do in the morning and just have that animal that's there for them. And so I assume this is where the reason for writing your book, Animal Kind, came from. How did this pop up?
Oh, you mean this little thing over here that I'm holding?
This right here.
This book over here is a book I'm very proud of. It is called Animal Kind, and the tagline is Lessons on Love, Fear, and Friendship from the Animals in Our Lives. Now, I'm fascinated by the relationships people have with animals and how those relationships benefit both people and animals. I mean, the connection between, say, dog and human spans such a long time, many thousands of years now. And it seems to be that it's almost like a natural thing to want to gravitate to a companion animal to help to soothe us and to in turn soothe them as well. They really do want to love us and be loved by us in return. So I thought to myself, I wonder if other people have really been as touched by the animals in their lives as I have been. And I asked a couple of my friends, and they came forward with these wonderful stories. And I said, could you lend me your story? Like, let me use your name, your animal, some pictures of yours. Let me learn about your story and share that in a way that is, going to be some beautiful storytelling. Now, in my book, I've taken some creative license with how to portray these relationships, real relationships between animals and humans, with my own chapter, which is called Bear, which is focused on my relationship with my ferret from a couple of years ago. That is factual. It's as life happened for me. It's almost like reading into my journal. But every single chapter is written from the point of view of the person. It's in a different style. There's a different kind of feeling in each and every chapter. It's not concise in a way because it doesn't make sense. It's not like it flows with the same feel throughout the book. Some of them are high intensity, some are very emotion. They provoke a lot of emotion. Some are very calm, and I liked that. I want to show how so many different kinds of people, so many different personalities, who go through so many different things, whether they are positive or negative, are all impacted in a positive way by these animals.
Yeah, I mean, it's I actually listened to it on Audible this week, and you are a great writer for one.
Thank you.
It was really awesome to listen to, and it seemed like you've, I don't know if you've, it doesn't, I don't think you've written before. Maybe you have spent some time reading, but this is your first book, right?
It's my first book, and I was very inspired growing up by how much emotion and feeling I was able to grasp from J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter. And I really wanted to try and tap into my inner writer, because I've written in my journal and I've written blog posts here and there, and I've tried to share, and I enjoy a nice piece of writing. So I thought I'd try and rise to this challenge, and I'm sure that there are ways that I can improve in the future. I'd love to write more, but I'm very proud of this book for the very first time that I've had the courage to release a written body of work, especially knowing that I could be judged because it's like, oh, a YouTuber has written a book. Is it just because she's a YouTuber? Like, no, I took this seriously. I committed. I spent months writing this book, so I wanted to do it the right way. And actually, the book almost didn't happen because I was writing the book during a very tumultuous time in my life. And there was a point that my finger was hovering over a text message to my managers that was just going to say, get me out of this contract. I can't do this. But I slept on it and I committed and I finished the book, and I'm so proud of it. And the fact that people have been sharing it on their Instagram stories and listening to the audiobook, I've spent a lot of time the last couple of weeks crying about it, to be completely honest with you, just like sobbing in my hedgehog onesie with my makeup all over my face, just a sniveling wreck of a mixture of pride that I've managed to make this happen against the odds, but also that people are receiving it and liking it and finding joy and happiness and connection in the book.
Yeah, to step up to the plate and fully expose your book in front of everybody is obviously, it's got to be really frightening, because there's no way you would have known if it was gonna. I mean, it's a great book. I really like, the writing is fantastic, but really, if you're the person that did it, it's almost like you can't tell if it's good or not, right?
That's right. I mean, I kind of cringe when I go back over it because I can see things that I would change, even though when I submitted, I was very happy with it, and I still am. And at this point, I wouldn't change it now, but I'm like, oh, I could have done this here. I could have done that there. But I think any artist, any writer, any musician goes back over their work and thinks, I could probably do this in a different way and even better in the future. So I would like to continue writing, and I don't know in what capacity I'll continue to write, but certainly I have tapped into something I really truly enjoy. And I mean, whilst writing this book, I had my puppy grow from a little 9-week-old pup that sat on one foot to suddenly at the end, when I put the final period at the end of that book, he was this massive dog, like 10 months old, just like sitting on my legs. And so that was really nice that my dog actually grew up with me writing this book, keeping me company writing this book, and being the one to get me out of the house and nudge me, because he's my ESA, which is an emotional support animal. So he's not a service dog, but he is an emotional support dog, and he'll like nudge me because he knows I'm getting a bit anxious. I need to leave the house. So he really helped me to finish the book too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And in terms of the stories, so those are all stories of your friends. I wasn't sure how you collected these stories.
Yes. I interviewed a whole bunch of different acquaintances and friends of mine within the zoological community, and they are all based on real people and real animals. And at the end of each chapter, you get to see a picture of the real animal, the real person who inspired that story.
Yeah, no, the stories are awesome. If you have the audiobook, is there any way for us to see the pictures?
Maybe I'll put up like a post, or I'll do a YouTube video to share those with people at some point, because it would be really wonderful if people could see those. Or yeah, I think I'll have to find a way to do that. So bear with me while I think about the right way to share these people and to thank them to the wider community who don't get to see what they look like, but they're absolutely phenomenal people.
Yeah, I would love to see pictures of them. I was trying to like look up pictures, but you can't find them.
Right. No, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. It would be nice to be able to celebrate them in other ways too.
And the audiobook is great. I'm not sure. So when you have an audiobook recorded, do you have a relationship with the person who reads it, or you just put it up somewhere and someone reads it off for you?
Well, actually, I wanted to do it myself, but due to time constraints, it wasn't going to be feasible for me to do it. So that will certainly be my next port of call, is to, in my next book, be able to do the audio for that myself, which I would love to do. But no, I didn't have a prior relationship with the person who did eventually do the audio. I had a couple of people submitted to me by my publishers, and they said, "Who do you like?" And I said, "This lady right here, she's got it." So yeah, she did a phenomenal job.
Oh yeah, she was great, and she's good. She's one of those readers that does different voices and whatnot. It's a really fun, and it's a quick read too. It's not a super long book. You can get through it in a weekend for sure.
Absolutely, it's light and easy reading, and I'm sure I'll write longer and longer in the future. But this was just me cutting my teeth and, sort of learning the ropes, as it were.
Mm-hmm. And your chapter is, like you said, it's fairly heavy, and so if people are curious to know, maybe curious is the wrong word because it seems a bit insensitive, but curious to know your past and some of the things that have made you, the events that have made you, that is the chapter that will kind of reveal some of that.
Oh yes, it's certainly things that I hadn't even revealed to even my own family, and they're like, "Oh, now you make so much more sense." And I'm like, "Thanks, Mom and Dad."
So did they not know that until the book?
No, I'm an ocean of secrets. I don't share a lot of the things that I feel could trigger other people, but I'm starting to realize that in sharing things that are not quite as rosy, and which are actually very much the opposite. I mean, there are certain times I really didn't know. I don't know how I made it through. How am I still alive? I don't know. I'm here for a purpose, though, and I feel like in sharing this, it can inspire other people who are going through just as bad or worse, or even inspire some empathy in people who think, it's easy to be a YouTuber. It's not. A lot of YouTubers have become YouTubers because they've been through some kind of hardship. And if I can share a true story of myself and show people that you can make some light come out from the dark, then that is wonderful if a single person is inspired to give life another shot.
Yeah, and it's so important as someone who has a huge audience that you're not just showing happy days all the time, because it's very easy as a person watching to get confused to think that is how their life is all the time. And people think, I wish I was them because their life seems perfect. It's like, it's not like that at all.
Yeah, no, not at all. I struggle every day with something, and it's a conscious decision I have to make to stay in a certain frame of mind and to put one foot in front of the other. If it were up to me, sometimes I'd just crawl into bed and just stay there until I can't stay there anymore. But I don't want that for myself. I make the conscious decision every day to get up. I'm going to brush my teeth, going to go out, take my dog out for a walk. Can't just let him, rot in the house. And I'm going to live really, really well, because that is the best kind of revenge on any hardship in my life, is to just move on and live well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good word, revenge. It's like, well, this is what's happening. Let's go after it. In terms of your current animals, I know you have your dog, obviously, and 2 ferrets. And what else do you have right now?
Very little at the moment, and I'm planning to keep it that way. So I have my 2 ferrets, Dobby and Niffler. I have my dog Kiba, who is a beautiful, almost 1-year-old Eurasia. I have my beautiful royal or ball python Car. She was my first ever rescue snake about 13 years ago, and she traveled with me to America from England, and she's been at my side for a long time. And I also have a tokay gecko who hates me and wants to see the entire world burn, but that's okay. I love him anyway. His name is Okitoke. And I also have one other snake called Zombie, who I'm very fond of. She is someone's ex breeder. She is a gray-banded king snake, and she has cataracts in both her eyes due to her old age. So I have a very, very small collection now. Of course, I live with my dear friend Kate. She's got 2 gorgeous Samoyed dogs, which are just land clouds, and she's got chickens and a rabbit. But ultimately, I'm very pleased to have arrived at a point where I have few animals again. And the reason why I have so few now is because I went through quite a horrible breakup recently, and most of the animals belonged to my former partner, so it was right for him to keep those. But in missing those, it's obviously very difficult some days. I had relationships with all those animals, but I've noticed that in being a lot more free, I'm able to dedicate more time to the animals that I now have, again, keeping fewer animals but well. And it's given me the opportunity to spend more time with other people's animal collections and showing off what other people have. And it doesn't necessarily mean that my channel won't have great animal content anymore. It'll just be more diverse. And I'm very, very excited to have arrived at this point in my channel where I can, once all of our travel restrictions are lifted, to go and interview other people and to focus on other things and not just promoting the potential keeping of lots of animals. It's nice to be able to be a person in the community who's not keeping that many animals, but can still inspire people.
Yeah, I think that would be an amazing, especially someone who like you has so much influence, to have somebody promoting the quality over quantity message, which in any pet community, it doesn't matter what you're keeping, reptiles or rodents or whatever it is. I think that's such an important message. It's so easy to end up over collecting. And like you said, you can start branching out and showing other collections without having to bring them home. So exactly. In terms of future plans, is that what your focus is now, going on back onto YouTube and going to produce some interesting things there?
Yes, absolutely. I had to take a little hiatus because life happened and I just had to be, Jesus, take the wheel for a moment, because I do not know how I'm going to get through the next couple of months. It's, just my life's a bit of a roller coaster at times, and I had to step away from YouTube for a couple of weeks just to get myself, into a new and safe situation to live. And it was really lovely. I flew out to LA a couple of weeks ago to meet with my managers. I have the most incredible managers who really believe in me as just an animal freak and where I can go. So I'm working at the moment on a TV show. I'm working potentially on some coloring books as well for my creature crew. I'm also working on a couple of different podcasts. One of them is going to be on my YouTube channel, and it's one I'm very passionate about. It's going to be called Work on the Wild Side, and it's going to be where I interview as many different animal professionals as possible to gain some insight into what they do and to help other people who might want to have these specific jobs understand the route to getting that job.
That would be amazing. I think that would be such a huge valuable, because like we said earlier, people think vet or zookeeper, and there's so many other options. And if there was a content out there that was leading younger people through that process, I think that would be huge.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know people who train giant Gambian pouched rats to detect landmines in Africa to help keep people safe. And I know people who fly birds of prey around stadiums in England to keep them free of pigeons and pest birds, and who provide a valuable service to airlines by having different explosive detection dogs as well. I want to interview everyone who works with animals and understand how they got there and why, and what the perks of the job are and what the drawbacks are, because you don't know, maybe someone actually wants to go into close protection training for canines. You never know. Some person might want to work with ponies, which help to rehabilitate people with special needs. I want to be able to help everyone to find their perfect animal career.
That's amazing. Is this something that you're going to roll out in 2020, as long as we can start moving around the regular world again?
Oh, it's going to start rolling out, I think, in late April, because it's going to be more interview style, so very podcasty, but with some animation elements over the top of it to make it watchable on YouTube as well. So certainly it'll be something that I've been working on very hard the last couple of months, the last couple of weeks especially, and hopefully I'll start rolling out a couple of episodes in mid-April to early May, or even June perhaps, depending on people's schedules. I'm trying to get as many interviews in as I can right now because everybody is home. And then of course I'll be working on a lot of different collaborations. I've got a lot of different people that I want to shine a light on, who are doing wonderful work. Friends of mine who have built their own zoos, family-run zoos from the ground up with state-of-the-art enclosures. I'd love to go and spend a couple of days with them and, show the ropes and learn how to train a camel and all this cool stuff. And there's another thing that I'd like to do where I try lots of different weird animal things like goat yoga and things like that, like just to give it a go. Anything to do with animals, I am so down for that ride.
Well, somehow I feel like your channel is just at the beginning all of a sudden. Like, it's, even though you got, I think, was it 650 or 650,000 subscribers, it seems like you're about to embark on something that's going to make the channel even bigger.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, where I was before, with my previous relationship and not feeling very good about myself, I felt like I stagnated somewhat. And in stepping away, it's been very painful to have to leave my animals behind. But in the other sense of I've gained a lot more freedom, and I'm able to create again. And 2020 is all about just living really well, having a lot of fun, sharing some really epic animals, and just making some great memories and sharing those with people. That's all I want to do. There's no master plan, like one day I'm going to be a famous animal presenter on TV. Like there's no end goal. I want to do it all, and I'm going to.
I love it. Okay, well, that's awesome. I think that's a fantastic place to wrap up. Can you let everybody know where they can find you online if they don't already know?
Oh, sure. Oh, I would love it if you guys come and become part of the Creature Crew. I'd absolutely welcome you with open arms. You can find me on YouTube at Emzotic, but the way that you spell that is EMZOTIC, Emzotic. And then on every platform, whether it is TikTok or Instagram or Twitter, I am at Emzotic Official, all one word. And come find me. I post fun animal stuff and a lot of stuff about my dog. So come and hang out.
Em, thank you very much. This was a pleasure.
Thank you, Dylan. Appreciate it.
All right, that brings us to the end of the episode. Em, thank you very much for joining me for the hour. I had a fantastic time chatting with you. If you are part of the Creature Crew, then thank you so much for joining me. I do really, really appreciate it. I encourage you to give me a follow on Instagram at animalsathomeca, or definitely go check out a few of the other episodes of the podcast. I would highly, highly recommend that you do. Thank you to CustomReptileHabitats.com for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. If you are in need of a universal rock background, a Miss King system, Arcadia lighting, or just a kit for your leopard gecko, your bearded dragon, or your ball python, definitely go check out the website in the link, CustomReptileHabitats.com. They really do have it all when it comes to gold standard reptile care. If you would like to support the show, please share the content. That's all you have to do. Share the content or leave me a rating on the Apple podcasting app. Of course, 5-star rating is always appreciated. Or you can go to animalsathome.ca/shirt and pick yourself up a shirt or a sweater, and $5 does automatically get donated to the Amazon Rainforest Conservancy. I will talk to you guys next week.